Hey, good morning. Right now I'm driving over to Atlanta, actually just side of Atlanta in Suwanee. I'm going to put a Runser Manufacturing thumb attachment on a John Deere 35D mini excavator. So far I'm quite happy with what I've seen. All I've really seen is the quality of manufacturing is definitely good. The cuts are precise, looks like they use good fixtures, everything looks straight, their welds are solid, their packaging is great. It had cardboard jammed in there, bubble wrap, everything that you would want to see in a $1,400 box. It is a really complete kit. It comes with both hydraulic lines for the cylinder, all the pins, all the quick attach fittings, everything. If you do not have a thumb on your excavator, it comes with everything you need to put it on. It's a pin-on kit. If your excavator does not have the lug on the boom, you will need to weld a lug on. But other than that, the one I'm working on does have the lug on, so it should be straightforward, pin on, and go. I will be giving a little video. Probably won't do a video while I'm putting it on, just because I don't have cameras and all that stuff. So I use the camera on my phone, so I'll probably do a walk around after I get the job done. I may take a couple pictures in the process, especially if stuff doesn't fit right. I expect it to fit really well. I mean, it looks like a really good kit. When I called about it, I sent some pictures over just to make sure that it was compatible. They do have I believe it's 10% restocking fee. So I wanted to, rather than pay $145 plus shipping to send the thing back, I wanted to make sure that it was going to be good. I called the phone number in their ad. I believe it's just runsermanufacturing.com. That sounds right. If it's wrong, I'll get back with you. But I called the phone number on the ad, left a message. He called me back within an hour or so. I sent some pictures over. He verified that that was the correct kit for that bucket, and I got it ordered. He said it would ship in 2 to 3 days. It shipped in 2 days. Tracking was immediately sent. It arrived exactly when it was supposed to. The guy was easy to talk to, easy to deal with. I really couldn't be a lot happier as of right now. We'll see how it goes on the install. Yesterday I got the engine and compressor put in the trailer for the Ingersoll P175 WJD. Pretty happy with that. I planned on doing it Sunday. I don't work Saturdays. So I guess technically I'm a day ahead of schedule. Update on the air sprayer from Harbor Freight. I'm sure there's people wondering, why would you not want the HVLP gun? Well, I didn't want the HVLP gun because half the time I'll be spraying outside. Now, if you've got low pressure and there's any amount of wind, the paint is not going to get to what you're spraying. Right now it's the middle of January and we get some 70-degree days. The bugs are dead, the wind is down, and it's good to spray outside. I'd rather spray outside. So I don't have any overspray in my shop. I don't need to worry about anything. I wheel it outside or set up some sawhorses or do what I've got to do. and spray. I don't need to worry about everything in my shop, setting up a little spray booth. You know, I work in my shop. I'm not a painter. I don't have a paint booth. So, boy, I'm doing 80. He was driving pretty fast, huh? But anyway, so that's why I went with a conventional gun. You know, it calls for 50 to 80 PSI. I got down to even just under 40, and it was still spraying the same. I did not notice, every once in a while, I would notice my stream getting thinner because my pressure went up. I had my regulator set at 65. I figure right in the middle is good. Maybe I should have been right at 50, but I did notice getting down like 45 to 48 PSI. You know, my spray pattern would get narrower up around 65 and then widen out around 50. On the equipment, I did not care one bit. You know, when I noticed it thinning out, I backed up a little bit. So I still had the same width of spray pattern hitting my piece of equipment. I'm not a painter. You know, my dad sprayed fine finishes. That's, you know, growing up, he did fine woodworking, sprayed polyurethane, and is good at it. He is really good at it. You want fine furniture, he's the man, but he don't really do it anymore because his asthma got to him. Now he's an electrician. Always has been. He's a good electrician too. But he is really good when it comes to anything that a house requires. He's the man, and second to none. But anyway, so that was my education on spraying, was just watching him do it growing up. So I did learn a little bit about it. And so when I went to do it, I didn't feel like I was walking into it blind. I'm familiar with how fast it's supposed to run off the paint stick. I'm familiar with how wide the pattern should be when it hits your material, you know, machine, whatever you're spraying. Oil base, I'm not that familiar with spraying. You know, I haven't painted a lot of stuff. So as far as saying, oh, how does it spray one thing compared to another, I don't know. I'm not a painter. On that note, what I will say is, if you're buying a rattle can, just go ahead and buy Rust-Oleum. Rust-Oleum makes a good equipment paint. You know, it's durable. It goes on thick. It doesn't run. You know, it's sticky almost immediately. So you get your first coat done, you're pretty much ready for your next coat. Now, I'm not talking about painting a lot of square footage. You know, I'm talking about little details or touch up. Rattle can's good. You know, I use rattle cans a lot because a lot of the stuff I paint is brackets, just little stuff. So I use them. Now, what I was getting to, Rural King sells Magic Paint. They also sell Rust-Oleum, but I was looking for an off-white for the compressor. Ingersoll Rand is like an almond color. They didn't have that in implement paint. As far as Rust-Oleum implement paint, they had Magic. Now, my wife is a painter, interior painter. She's not equipment, but my wife is a painter, and she said, don't buy Magic paint. That stuff's junk. And I thought, well, hey, all I've got to do is paint a couple brackets. And she uses interior paint, which is latex. I was using oil-based paint. So I wasn't totally concerned. I thought, well, I'll give it a shot because I'm just painting little stuff. It's oil base. It's probably fine. It's not fine. There is nothing magical about magic paint other than maybe it's translucency. Maybe that's the magic in it. You don't even see it. It's like camouflage because it's junk. Do not buy magic paint. I'm not a spokesperson for anybody other than the Resurrection Chop Shop and my wife. If you want good quality painting, interior painting in the Knoxville, Tennessee area or surrounding, I would imagine she'll travel 50 miles or so. I don't know. But send a message because she is an excellent interior painter. But she painted a closet trying out this magic paint. It's cheap. Uh-oh, there's a sheriff. He's probably going to pull me over. Hands-free driving. My hands are free. Sorry if I'm giving you a good shot of the wheel right now. I'm not sure. But, so, back to magic paint. She painted a closet with this magic paint. And it was already white. All she was doing was painting a white closet white. She felt like, hey, it's just a closet. I'm using magic paint. It's what they had at Rural King. We were there. Hey, I need some paint. I'm going to buy this. Typically, she uses Behr's and Benjamin Moore. And right now, she is working on a comparison of what is better, Behr's or Benjamin Moore. Anyway, back to magic. It's junk. Painting a white closet white after 3 coats, all you could see was the base color. She stirred and stirred and stirred. There was nothing to stir. Is junk. We took it back. You know, there was like a third of a can left, maybe quarter of a can left, something like that. And they didn't want to take it back because we'd already used it up. But they did because the stuff's junk, and we still ended up going and probably buying Behr's paint or whatever. Anyway, same results with the rattle can. It's junk. I painted some brackets, cleaned them up. You know, they were a little bit rusty to begin with, but they had paint on them. It wasn't anything, wasn't no rust pile. I cleaned them up, sanded them down. I did not prime them. Rust-Oleum, you don't need no primer with that stuff. Coat it. You know, rust does not come through it. Magical how the rust just comes right through that paint. That stuff is garbage. Don't buy magic paint. I will say, you know, what's good or what's bad. I'm not, I won't say I'm not loyal to any customers. I'm way too loyal to certain customers like Napa, and I've bought plenty of junk from them, but I am loyal to Napa. It is a great resource when you're buying equipment parts and automotive parts and everything in between. You go there, tell them what filter you need, they'll have it. You know, if they don't have it there, they're going to have it the next morning. All parts guys will sell you the wrong thing. Just make sure you get the right thing off the bat. And so I use Napa. Don't waste your time and money on buying their high dollar thermostats that say that when they fail, they get stuck in the open position. I've bought every thermostat from the cheapest thing at AutoZone, and I try to buy OEM, you know, but if I can't get an OEM thermostat readily, you know, I'll buy a compatible Delco or a Motorcraft. You know, I try to buy from an OEM manufacturer because it seems like they want their stuff to work more than Napa. I try not to buy, I forget the low line at AutoZone, ValueCraft or something like that. I try not to buy a ValueCraft anything. But I did buy the fail-safe thermostat from Napa. It's their best thermostat. Good, better, best. I bought the best one. And it failed. It did not get stuck in the open position, and it wouldn't even open all the way. So I did a repair for a guy, put a thermostat in a Ford E450 box truck. My favorite customer. I do a lot of work for him. I'm on my way out there right now. He is a plumber in Atlanta, Zippy Plumber. He does the best work. If you guys are in the Atlanta area, Zippy Plumber. I feel like if you go anywhere else for residential or small commercial plumbing, and what I mean by small is if your drains are, I believe he does up to 8-inch drains. NGI if you want big stuff. But Steve, I hope you're okay with me saying that. But it's true. You guys are the best. I believe that. Big is in big sewers, city sewers, NGI. Residential, Zippy Plumber. He also does small commercial, I believe, but trenchless repairs. That's Zippy's specialty. Clogs. He's got awesome equipment. He really does have the latest and greatest equipment. I service it. It runs perfect. I know that equipment well, and I know that it's the latest and greatest. He's got a water jet for jetting sewers. He can clean your drains fast, efficiently. His service is second to none. I mean, he really strives to satisfy the customers. What's going on here, people? Everybody wants to go in the fast lane and slow down. What's the deal? What is the deal? But anyway, these thermostats, I went out there and put a thermostat in his box truck. Radiator was leaking. He said, go ahead and put a thermostat and hoses on it. So, off to Napa. Picked up the parts, come back. I got their high-end thermostat because Napa doesn't sell Delco or Motorcraft. They sell Napa. So I got their thermostat that when it fails, it's supposed to go full open. I got the repair all done. It's sitting there idling while I'm cleaning my tools up, and everything's fine. It idled for like an hour, maybe even more. Everything's good. I got the heater blaring, make sure the antifreeze level is up and it's going through the heater core. So everything's good. Took it down the road. Everything's good. Like I'd say 10, 15 miles in, thermostat fails. Sticks in a midway position, so the flow was next to nothing. Come to a traffic light, temperature goes to normal. Hit the gas, temperature goes up. I refused to believe that it was the thermostat. I thought, no, it's got to be air. It's got to be something else. Just refused to believe that it was the thermostat because I'm loyal to Napa for no good reason. And so anyway, changed the thermostat out with a Motorcraft. No problems. Everything runs just the way it should. So don't buy the high-end Napa ones. Stick with your OEM thermostats if possible. I'm not a spokesperson for anybody, but I like Napa. I'll go back. I'll probably be back there today. I've got a couple stops I need to make. I've got to get the wheels back on a trailer. I shouldn't knock anybody directly, just and say just bad remarks. I know I do, but I hate to go after a company in general and just say don't go there, so I'm not going to, except for Magic Paints. My goodness, come on, Magic. Where's the magic? But Napa's good, just don't buy their thermostats. I don't think they're going to go out of business if everybody in creation quits buying Napa thermostats. They still have plenty of good product there. They've been really helpful. I would venture to say all my filters at Napa, most of my fluids. I spend a lot of money at Napa. Lift support cylinders, the list goes on. I mean, I do. I spend a lot of time and money at Napa. But anyway, it's the same customer. If you guys are on the Resurrection Chop Shop Facebook, it's the same customer that I did the 8,000 pound axles for on his big trailer. Now, he was running a service trailer. He put a lot of miles on it. It was I don't know, a 10,000 pound trailer or something, enclosed trailer. And he had a brake job done on it. And I feel bad. I'm sorry, man. I didn't do the brakes on it. But he asked me to do the brakes. I told him I didn't have time. Take it to a trailer shop. I drive like 150 miles each way to come out here and service equipment. I love this guy. I will drop what I'm doing in a heartbeat to do anything he wants me to do. So I do feel bad that I told him take it to a trailer shop. It's what they do. But it made sense, you know. I thought that it would have been cheaper for him to take it to a trailer shop and have them do a brake job on it. I would have had to have gone, jacked the trailer up, pulled everything off, taken it to a Tow Pros, and which is where I'll be going today to get the parts for this trailer. And no, he did not go to Tow Pros to have the brake job done. But he had the brake job done, and I could have done that job for what they charged him. So again, I feel bad because I told him it would be cheaper, you know, save you some money, go to a shop, and he went to a reputable shop and have this done. So if you were to message me in concerns of where not to go to have trailer service done in the Atlanta area, I'll tell you where he went, just for your own safety. But in the meantime, probably just go to Tow Pro. I'll leave it at that. But again, if you're not in the Duluth area to go to Tow Pro, I'll tell you where he went, but not on the video. So he's driving down the road on his way back from a service, and I do know for a fact that they put the old lug nuts back on. New hubs, new studs, old lug nuts. Now, anybody that's messed with nuts and bolts a whole lot, when you know, the nuts and bolts start forming to each other. The threads stretch, you know, after so many tightens, the threads stretch. So you get a lot of miles. He hauls a ton of weight, so he blows a lot of tires. These threads have been stretched. So the nuts had conformed to the studs for who knows how long. And, you know, I think he's had the trailer for about a year. Who knows how many miles he's put on it? Who knows how many times he's changed tires on it? Anyway, they put the old lug nuts on with new studs. Bad move. Amateur move. Amateur move. You know, dude, is this your first day? Come on. But, so he's driving down the road, and actually, just before that happened, maybe a couple days, he was over at his lot changing a tire, and I walked over and noticed that his axles were loose. But it's kind of irrelevant to this topic. But he couldn't get one of the lug nuts off because, and he said, "Man, is this stripped?" No, I don't believe that it was stripped. They didn't use any lubrication putting the studs on, or putting the nuts on the studs. Number one, use low anti-seize. You know, little anti-seize or grease goes a long way. And we had to break the stud to get the wheel off. Ultimately, so we put 5 out of 6 back on because one broke because the amateurs did this repair evidently. So a couple days later, he's driving down the road, and both wheels on the opposite side that we had just worked on sheared straight off. Broke all 12 studs, 6 off each wheel, dragging his trailer down the highway, and with $250,000 worth of equipment in it. And so, which resulted in me putting heavier axles on a different trailer. Now I'm going today to get that trailer back up on the wheels and haul it out of there. But I know this probably isn't too entertaining, me driving. My clock's an hour fast. If you guys are reading 7:52, it's really 6:52. I don't change my clocks. But, I guess I did pass into Georgia at some point. 333. 258 or so is 285. I'll be taking that. So I got a little ways to go. I'm just yammering about my experiences with different stuff right now. But, so anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I've got to go get over there, pull a hub off, drive some studs out, measure the axles, get over to Tow Pro, because obviously when 2 wheels come off of a trailer, it sheared the U-bolts off. I took a couple of my spare trailer wheels over there a couple weeks ago, and there's also wheels from the axles that we took off. So, I mean, I think there'll be plenty of wheels to put on this thing. So we're gonna get this thing back on the ground. Get it off the ground. It's on the ground. But we're gonna get it off the ground. And why do I think that the wheels sheared off? I don't think that they were tight. I think they were tightened with an impact, and nobody even knew if they were really tight, because they were stripped, basically stripped. The threads on the nuts were stretched, brand new studs. Who knows if there was even the same thread pattern? Nobody really knows that. All we know is every time that he's tried to change a tire, from what he's told me, the studs act like they're stripped. So hopefully they're at least the same thread pattern, but basically they're not anymore because they were stretched. Yada, yada, yada. They probably weren't tight. All the hammering from the force on the wheel to the stud, there is play in there. It ended up just shearing it off. Lost them both. That's my speculation or educated guess on that. I didn't go over it prior. I didn't feel like I needed to. I'm sorry. Next time I'll do the repair. That's why I did the axles, because, actually, no trailer shop wanted to do the axles. They all said that it would be 2 months out. He didn't have time to do it. I told him I'd do them because I didn't want the same thing happening. You know, end up going down the road and rip the axles out from under the thing or something. So I ended up putting the 8,000 pound axles underneath that trailer. There's pictures of that on the Resurrection Chop Shop Facebook page. Check out resurrectionchopshop.com. You know, there's a lot more going on than just doing some mobile repairs. This is a small portion of what I do, but it is something I offer. It is really convenient. Right next door is Importado, maybe. I don't know. They work on a lot of BMWs. I know that. Right next to where Zippy Plumber stores their equipment. Matt is the fella's name that owns Zippy Plumber. He's a great guy. Again, I'd recommend Zippy. But they do great work. He never shortcuts anything. I know that he has actually even gone back in and redone the work if he didn't approve of the work that his guys did. So he personally, they all take pictures of their work, and it has to pass his inspection before the job's done. And if the work isn't done complete to his standard, he will go and redo it. His work is second to none, and he makes sure of it. So just a reputable guy with a reputable company. And so back to what I was saying, the neighbor over there, it's Importado maybe, was having some trouble with one of their lifts. So they got one new cylinder. The other side's doing the same thing. What it did was it ate the pulley out that the chain rides on, ate through the bushing. Bushing ate into the pin. Pin started rotating inside of the clevis. Clevis wore out. It was actually cheaper for him to replace the cylinder assembly than it would have been to have me cut that clevis off and redo everything. So I think he ended up finding a cylinder assembly for around $300. By the time I cut that clevis off, remake it, weld it on to the cylinder, machine the pulleys and pins, he's going to be in $300 easy. So I don't claim to be the cheapest. I don't try to compete with the cheapest. I don't want to be the cheapest. You know, you get what you pay for. And, you know, people come to me because I compete with the best. You're not getting better quality out there. I am sure that there are other companies, other machine shops that do as good a work as I do. I'm sure there are, you know. And I'm not going to say this I'm not boasting when I say this. I can't recommend a machine shop that does as quality of a job as I do because I don't know of any. But I am sure that there are shops out there that do as good of work as I do. But I'm a one-man shop, and that's how I make my living. So I do make sure that my work is the best. You know, again, I'm sure there's shops out there that are just as good as me. I can't recommend any because I don't know of any. I've worked in a lot of machine shops. Everybody's trying to cut corners. you know, and you know, the bigger the shop, the more people you have working, the lower your rate can be, because you're making more money. You're making X amount of dollars per person. You know, if you got 10 people working, your shop rate's $80 an hour, you should be making $800 an hour. I've got one guy working, and that one guy is me. So, you know, you've got big shops with a lot of guys working. They shouldn't be trying to cut corners. They should be trying to put out quality product. But every one of them wants you to do it faster and cheaper. I've worked, I'm not even sure how many shops I've worked in. You know, my experience comes from the amount of shops I've worked in. I've got a lot of experience, so I've worked in a lot of shops. So if let's see, I've worked in mold shops, tool and die shops, pattern shops, job shops, machine building shops, high pressure water shops where we rebuilt pumps. I was the PD pump repairman at that machine shop. I was also the CNC programmer, lead of the manual side, and lead of the manual machining department, and PD pump repairman. PD is positive displacement. Basically, I always call them a crankshaft pump. You got crankshaft pumps and intensifier pumps when it comes to high pressure water. I did the PD pumps, positive displacement, crankshaft, call it what you want. But so I've been in a lot of environments. I was also head machinist and head technician in a motorcycle machine shop. We did Harley repair, and it was also, I guess I'll call it a job shop. I mean, he kind of took whatever work paid the bills. So while I'll say I was lead machinist, I did very little lathe work there. And it was primarily lathe work is what we got. But when it came down to it, it was me and one other guy getting the work out, and I'll just leave it at that. I mean, I was the only guy that did mill work. I did enough lathe work to make sure that it went out the door, and I did most of the motorcycle repair. I'm not going to put a percentage on it, and I'm not going to talk about what shop it was, because the reason I left there was because I don't skimp on my work. There was some crooked stuff going on, and I don't skimp on my work. So I'm not out to cheat anybody. I've been cheated way more than I should have been. I'll just say that. There's, as far as work I've done, I will not cheat a customer. And that's that. If, you know, I've taken the hit on a lot of jobs. You know, the more I quote, the better I get at quoting. But I don't ever come back on a customer and say it's going to be more. I just don't do that. You know, if I underbid a job, I underbid a job. And, you know, I try to quote high. I do. Anymore, I actually try to quote quite a bit high. And if I get the job, I make money off of it. If I don't get the job, I don't need to worry about losing money on it. So, but what the customer is getting is quality. And the more customers I have, the more customers I keep, because they appreciate the quality they're getting it. So, the guy I used to work for in the high pressure shop, and I'll mention that's Under Pressure Systems, high quality product. It's Under Pressure Systems Inc. in New Philadelphia, Ohio. Oh, no. It's just Under Pressure Systems. It's not Under Pressure Systems Inc. anymore. When I worked there, it was. But it was sold. Actually, my last day was the new owner's first day. The new owner recently passed. He was a really good guy. I kept in touch with him. I worked there up until about approximately 3 years ago, but I did keep in touch with him over the past 3 years. The only reason I left is because I moved to Tennessee. Always wanted to move south. The company was selling. I felt like it was a really good time. I had a lot of loyalty to that company. And so when it was selling, I could have never gotten out of there if it was not selling. I was just loyal to the company. And I still have loyalty to that company. The water stuff that I do, I try to send the work to them as far as if I'm buying hose or, whatever it may be, I try to include them. I try to keep in good contact with them. They're good people. The new owner was a good guy. It is still, I believe, his wife is now the owner, and I think she's going to hold on to it and keep it running. Good group of guys over there. If you're in the high pressure water industry, Under Pressure Systems in New Philadelphia, Ohio is a good place to get your stuff. They sell tooling. I've designed some tooling when I worked there. I called it the pipe crawler. It was also called the Crawl Daddy, but I think it went on. What they sell it as is the chain-driven pipe cutter. That was my design. I engineered that and built it. That's my design. The prints they have on the books are mine. That is my design, 100%. There was some other stuff that I was working on. 5K floor machine or something like that. I think it would even work up to like 20K. But it's kind of an NLB knockoff, but mine is a lot better. That was another one I was working on. I believe that, and it was up and running, so I believe that they have that also for sale, which is also my design. All me, 100%. Like I said, the floor machine was like an NLB knockoff. The chain-driven pipe cutter is sort of a knockoff, which I didn't know it at the time. But now I've seen more stuff in the welding industry where they're using these chain-driven mechanisms to torch cut and weld. So, and mine looks a lot like it. So it's definitely a lot different, but it looks a lot like it. I don't know how they're tightening the chain, and I don't know a lot about their product. But when you look at the two of them, mine kind of looks like a knockoff. But it's my design, 100% my design. So I kind of started with a failing design and turned it into a working one. So any I say 100% my design because it is, but there was something there that didn't work, and I re-engineered it. So I say 100% my design, call it what you want. But it doesn't work, function, or look like the original one. So call it what you want. But it's good for the oil and gas industry, cutting big pipes, and because it's cutting with water. You're not going to start a fire with water. You don't want to cut a gas pipe with a torch for obvious reasons. Oil or gas. So it's great for the oil and gas industry. I would like to get back into making some high pressure tooling. I do miss that industry. I do a little bit with water now. Just making stuff for these guys, for plumbers. They do a lot with water, so I make what they need. Basically that's it. And a lot of times I just tell them to buy it from Under Pressure, or they're using Stone Age stuff, so I tell them to go back to Stone Age, buy another one. I can't compete with production manufacturing. I'm making one, so for me to make one of anything, there's a lot of setup time involved. And even though these guys might be getting top dollar out of their stuff, the water pressure industry is expensive. It is high dollar stuff. I probably could compete on spray bars and nozzles, but I don't have the test equipment for spray bars and nozzles. But as far as what they're getting out of them and the time it takes to make them, I probably could compete. But I'm not set up for them, and all the way down to the test equipment. So it's not what I try to get into. It's I enjoy making tooling. As far as if you guys wanted a pipe crawler, I wouldn't be opposed to making you a pipe crawler. A track mounted system, I can make track mounted systems. Now, I am not going to copy anybody's design. I will provide you with something better than what's on the market. I do not try to make anything cheaper than what's out there. I can only provide you with a better product. I cannot provide you with a cheaper product. I do not compete as far as with pricing. I put out a better product. I've got some really cool machines I'm getting ready to build. And that's what I tell my customers. I do not promise a cheaper product. I promise a better product. Ease of maintenance. If I deliver you a machine, whatever parts can be bought from Grainger or McMaster Car or wherever I get them from, I'll provide you with part numbers. I don't want you to have to call me if you need a fitting or a bearing or a bracket or a pump cylinder or whatever, a valve. I want you to be able to call the manufacturer and buy those parts and replace them yourself. Save yourself some money. I mean, that's what I offer. Check the sky out. It's like bluish purple. No trails yet. That's cool. I produce a high quality product when it comes down to everything. my machining is top notch. I don't have some big elaborate machine shop. I've got a CNC 3-axis vertical mill. I've got a 20 by 60 engine lathe. I've got an index knee mill that I would like to replace someday, but it still does the job. It's a great unit, good, solid mill. It just doesn't have all the, the ram doesn't extend in and out or pivot side to side, or the travel on it, isn't really what I would like it to be. But it was my first piece of equipment. When me and my wife got together, she knew that I wanted to start a machine shop, and she said, do it. And she got on me about buying equipment. She said, if you want a machine shop, you can't do it without machines. So that's how my machine shop started. My neighbor had a index knee mill, which I still have today, and old Craftsman Atlas belt drive lathe. Those were my first two pieces of equipment, was that lathe and my mill. And the lathe was like a 6 by 24, just a little guy. I got some tools on the floor just squeaking away, so I hope that you can't hear that, because it's making me crazy. I just noticed it. I don't even know how long it's been doing it for. But so that's when I started my shop. I mean, originally, I started riding a dirt bike when I was like 3 or 4 years old. It was a little Suzuki JR50. I couldn't even touch the ground on it. As soon as I started riding, I just could not dream of being without that dirt bike. And I always knew I wanted to build motorcycles when I grew up. So when I got older, my dad asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I told him build motorcycles, and I'd been telling him that my whole life, and obviously it wasn't taken too seriously. Oh, I fixed that darn squeak. Maybe. But, so he said, well, you need to become a machinist if that's what you really want to do. So I said, well, then I guess I'm going to be a machinist. Man, people are just flat flying. That guy must be late for work. I'm doing over 80. He's just weaving in and out of traffic. But, so my junior year of high school, I went to Maplewood. It's a vocational school. I went for machining. I was, 15 years old or something, 16 years old. Went to Maplewood for machining, and stayed with it. Every job I've ever had, I've been a machinist. It's, or machinist and, I've been a machinist and a machine builder. I've been a machinist and a tooling builder. I've been a machinist and a motorcycle mechanic. I've been a machinist and a pump repairman. So I've done a lot of different stuff. High pressure water industry includes hydraulics and pneumatics. Machine building includes hydraulics and pneumatics. So I definitely got a lot of experience in a lot of different aspects of building machinery and working on machinery. Oh, we're going to see an accident. I'd love to get that on video. But, so I started machining in trade school when I was 15 or 16. Had my first job in a mold shop during my senior year. Left school early, went to work. When I graduated, I went to a tool and die shop. Worked there until I went to an aluminum foundry. Worked in the machine shop. I did work in the finishing department there for a while before I got into the machine shop. There was, in that machine shop, it was pretty unique, is why I tried to get in there so desperately. They built trick flow cylinder heads, and what I mean by built was they cast them, they machined them, and they assembled them. Trick Flow is Summit Racing's own cylinder head for Fords and Chevys. They also made Delcron Harley engine cases. At the time, the CFO for Production Pattern owned Delcron. Bought it from a company out of California, brought it to Ohio, and was machining them. They may have cast them. I think they probably cast them. All I know is we got the raw casting in, but it was an aluminum foundry, so I feel pretty safe saying that they were cast. We machined them. They weren't cast at that location. They would have been cast in Cleveland, Ohio. Actually, right along with the Trick Flow line. I believe they were cast in Cleveland, Ohio. The Ford V10 engine blocks were also cast there. Ford V10 timing belt covers. There's a lot of stuff. But anyway, so that's why I wanted to get into that job, because I wanted the experience of machining engine cases and cylinder heads, to see what that was all about. Try to learn. I got into the mold shop just because I wanted a job. I've never really been into making molds. That really never appealed to me. As soon as I graduated high school, I got into the tool and die shop because supposedly that is the premier, you're a tool and die maker. You are the premier of machining. There is something to be said for that. You've got tight tolerances out of the chute. So you machine everything to a really tight tolerance. You put the die together. Sometimes it's a one-hit wonder. It comes first hit, it puts out a good part. But I don't know how often that happens. It's certainly not every time. And what do we got going? So anyway, I wanted to get into a tool and die shop because of the status that the rumor. It's top of the line. You're the top of the totem pole if you're a tool and die maker. So, and it was great to get my experience in a tool and die shop, because I did learn how to square a block correctly. Still to this day, people with lots of experience, more experience than I've got, probably, just going off the ones I've worked with, don't know how to square a block. And, just flip, always keep that flip side towards the back jaw. No, you are only squaring that block to the accuracy of the back jaw, which is not square when you tighten your jaw down, run an indicator down your jaw. Next time you put a part in there and you tighten the jaw, run an indicator down it. Now a brand new vise is going to be better than an old one, obviously, but you would be surprised, and will likely see around 3 thousandths from top to bottom of the jaw out of square. So flip, 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 flip is not how you square a block accurately. And all you guys out there that act like I don't know what I'm talking about and say, oh, I've been doing it like that. Well, that's great, man. I'm not on here to argue with anybody, but I bet your blocks are no more square than your back jaw. So that's all I've got to say about that. But I did start off in a die shop. As far as my first job out of high school, I worked for 2 guys that were good die makers. One really put a lot more time into everything. You know, he wanted his grinds to be perfect as far as on the surface grinder. Everything, you know, nothing was good enough. It had to be good, it had to be right. The other one, it didn't have to be pretty. As long as it got you there, it was good. We used to call him Tiger Stripe because his grinds, when he pulled it off the surface grinder, was just burnt and it had tiger stripes. So, you know, but now I appreciate both of those guys because I learned a lot from them. And it was a great place to start. Tool and Die is an excellent place to start. I don't think it's any kind of top of the totem pole. You know, there's making parts is making parts. If you can hold a tight tolerance, you can hold a tight tolerance. You know, there's a lot that goes into designing a die. So, I mean, there was my uncle who passed a few years back. That's all he was a stamping die designer. Not a machinist whatsoever. CompuDie Designs. He was a fantastic stamping die designer. He was really good at the first hit making a good part. Just an excellent, good, you know, just as good of a guy as he was a die designer, and he was an excellent designer. And I think about him pretty often because we usually had, I shouldn't say usually, but we did have different projects going on at different times. His mind was always wandering. So I'm a machinist and got a shop at home, and he was an engineer. So we had some good conversations, and I miss him. But you know, I've got a couple of things in my toolbox. My 6-inch Mitutoyo mics he gave me. My Kurt Weiss that's got the back hacked off he gave me because he had a little mill in his shop that he hardly ever used, and it was so small that he couldn't even put a full-size vise in it, so he cut the back of it off so he could use it. He gave me a sign bar. Yeah, that's how much of a machinist he was. He said, I got this thing. You can have it if you know how to use it, but you got to tell me what it's for before you take it with you. So I come over and I said, it's a sign bar, you know, and I showed him how to use it. And I said, don't you want it now that you know what it is? And he said, nope, take it with you. So, you know, I use my tools often. I use my machines off, and so I look at that vise and those mics, and it's a constant reminder. He's a good guy. Woke up every morning, drank a cup of coffee with my aunt, read the Bible, said their prayers, and off to work he went, which he worked at home, but still, you know what I mean. But just a good, solid guy. So as far as tool and die, a lot of that's, just comes down to a good machinist that knows how to hold a tolerance. The shop I started off in designed their own dies, and actually went to Uncle Chris when they got stumped. So, and he'd get them out of a bind. So then I went off to which actually, it was two places that I worked, the aluminum foundry, and then when I did get transferred to machining, I went to a pattern shop. And I was an operator there. And that is where I started learning about programming. I worked with some guys. I actually, this is bad. Okay. I actually started programming because I was set up. I was running oil pumps, Harley Davidson oil pumps, and when I left, I was told, if you have any issues with these, I was told if you have any problems with these, just go ahead and run cam support plates, which we also made Harley twin cam support plates. So, it was weird because I'd run one and the edge wouldn't clean up. So I would change the fixture offset and I would run one and the edge wouldn't clean up. So I thought, this ain't right. So I started looking into the program, and I saw a macro call in there, and I don't remember offhand what the macro call on a Fadal is, but I thought, that's an odd, I'm used to seeing G codes and M codes, and so I know what does what as far as, miscellaneous function codes, turns your coolant on, turns your spindle on, does all that stuff. And you start getting into odd numbers. And I thought, what is this? So I got into the book and saw that it was a macro call. And so then I was able to locate the macro, and the macro was offsetting my Y work offset every time I hit the button, every time I restarted the program, so every time I hit the green button, my work offset shifted, 20 thousandths, I don't remember the number. So I thought, man, that guy set me up for failure. Same guy that told me, if you have any problems, run cam support plates, and I'll run these tomorrow. And I thought, that dirty, rotten scoundrel. He set me up because he didn't want to run cam support plates, and you can sit on your ass and run oil pumps all day. So, which I was running cam support plates, oil pumps, cylinder heads, and I do believe probably 5-liter intake uppers or something, you know. I'd always run as many machines as I could possibly run around and was getting the most production off of every single machine. And the best quality of work. That's the way I've always been. I've always been the guy that did the best work and the most of it. And I've loved it. I shouldn't like making people mad, but people get mad when they get shown up. And I've always loved showing people up with more of a better product. So, yeah, that's what I've done. I've slowed down in my years, but I guess because I've got nothing to prove anymore. I'm not proud. There's nothing beneath me. If my bills are getting paid and it pays, you know, the job pays my hourly rate, that job is not beneath me. I'll put license plate bulbs in your car if you want to pay my hourly rate. I'm not above that. You know, as far as machining, I'm not above simple jobs. You know, if you want to pay my rate, I'm not above anything. So I have slowed down. I don't really care if I'm faster than the next guy. I know I can be, because the last shop I was at, which the last 6 months or so that I was there, I was just so aggravated with the place that I was run and the people that I worked around. I tried to be the person that did the least, which is a horrible thing to say, but it's true. It is absolutely true. Because they called him the team leader, but to be a team leader, you have to have a team and you have to be a leader. We had no team because we had no leader. When that guy, I'll just call him that guy for the sake of the conversation, when he was gone and I was in charge, our team was a well-oiled machine. We got so much done and everybody was in such a good mood. It was great. I taught who wanted to learn G&M code programming, because that's not something that's readily taught. Longhand programming, if you want to call it that, whatever. But I try to teach people that. The youngsters coming in, if they wanted to learn it, I'd teach it to them. But anyway, when that guy was gone, everything ran great. When that guy was there, I tried to do as little as possible, because that's what he did. So he wouldn't do a thing. When he wasn't there, he obviously wasn't doing anything. When he was there, he obviously wasn't doing anything. And I got sick of picking up his slack when he was there. When he wasn't there, nobody wanted him there. So, who cares? I'll do all sorts of work. He didn't show up for almost a month straight one time. And I got a whole assembly done. Had all the machines running, programmed, set up, and ran every machine in that shop. He didn't come in because he thought there was no way that assembly was going to get done, and he didn't want it to be the one that looked bad. So he left me there to look bad. So I got it done. I got that whole assembly done. And it got assembled in time to deliver. If he was there, it would not have gotten done because he's a stick in the spokes. I mean, he blocks production. I mean, he really does. So, whatever. Back to the pattern shop. That's why I went there, was to learn about cylinder heads, engine cases, stuff like that, machining tolerances, as far as engine tolerances. You know, what do you really need to hold on an engine? What is clearance on a cam bushing? You know what I mean? So I went there to learn that, and I wanted to learn production manufacturing because I've always had my goal set on my own shop. So there was a lot I wanted to learn. From there, I went to a job shop, and when I started, I told them my goal, you know, I'm a good manual machinist, and I was really good. Still am. But I like programming. It's nice to get a program written and push the button. A lot less labor in that. A lot more accurate. I mean, so that's what I do. When I started there, I told them I wanted to learn how to program. And they said, okay, go ahead and run. Hey, there's a 30G John Deere. Oh, I'm working on a 35. That's right. So, ultimately, I went there. They made me a manual machinist. I was put on a horizontal mill and a VTL in the back. Nobody wanted to run them. There's no heat back there. In the winter, after you ran the heater all day, it would be 50 degrees. It was miserable. So as I worked my way up to the heated shop and got on smaller machines, Bridgeports and engine lathes, I became a lathe guy. I was at that shop for probably 5 years. First 2 years was primarily manual. I got on a track lathe and mill and was programming those, you know, just conversational kind of, I don't know, CNC starter kits. I got on those and did good. I was really good at them, but I mean, you can only do so much on one of those. And the more turning I did, the more I became a lathe guy. The more I became a lathe guy, the more I got moved towards the production CNC stuff. The owner of the company was running a Hardinge CNC lathe there, and he was trying to get away from it because he's the owner of the company. So I told him I wanted to learn how to program, you know, got more on him about it, you know, because I didn't feel like running the conversational machines was learning how to program. I still didn't know what a M8 or a G1 was, you know, which is, you know, basics, day one stuff. So he said, okay. And he put me on that Hardinge and made me the operator. I got the books out for that machine and watched the programs run. Learned what every code meant. and more. You know, I read the books and figured out what other codes I could be using instead of what was being used, and started editing programs like that, taking lines out, putting new stuff in, shortening the programs. And you know, actually became a really good lathe programmer. I programmed that lathe for probably 3 years, and it was Fanuc control, and that's my favorite control. Yeah, Haas it's my favorite control to program at, is a Haas. As far as a machine, Haas is okay. Don't buy one if you plan on keeping it forever. A heavy machine with a Fanuc control is as good of a machine as you can buy, and you'll have them for a long time. Here we go, Atlanta traffic. My favorite. Can't move. This is the beans here. But, so, I need one of them little mounts, you know. So I programmed there. I became a great programmer on a lathe. I really did. I'm not just saying that. It was a job shop, so we made a lot of different parts, gear blanks. You know, we would run production, we'd run one-off stuff. I really did become an excellent programmer on a lathe. After there, I went to another job shop, and became a mill programmer. And that's kind of where I got my feet wet in mill programming. You know, not a lot of difference once you know how to program one. For the most part, I mean, there is definitely different codes, you know. Your offsets are different and stuff like that. But basically, once you start understanding how to program, you're good. So there I learned subprograms. You're not going to use a lot of subprograms on a lathe. But you do on a mill. So there I learned subprograms. Just simple ones. That shop didn't do very complicated parts. Actually, they did a lot of like brackets for equipment, which is kind of open tolerance stuff. Some of it's tight, but most of the stuff we did was pretty open tolerance stuff. But I did learn sub-programming, decking cycles and stuff. We used them on decking cycles, safety lines, offsets, approaches, stuff like that. Basically the differences between lathe and a mill is what I learned there. I wasn't there too terribly long. Job shops are great for experience. You want to get experience in making a wide variety of parts. Job shop, but I would totally recommend go to a tool and die shop, learn how to do stuff right, then go to a job shop and learn how to apply that to more things other than just blocks. Job shops make everything. You know what I mean? They make it all. There's nothing that you don't make in a job shop. So, for the most part, now there's specialty items. Chances are you're not going to make a fuel injector in a job shop. You're not going to make a automotive valve in a job shop. You know, there's definitely specialty shops yet, but job shops do it all. You know, you might turn a brake rotor. You might make a rotating orbital camshaft, not shaft, plate. I've made a lot of cams, but I always called them face cams just because it's easier to picture. The lobe is on the face of a diameter rather than around the perimeter. Made a lot of them, big ones, little ones, in job shops. The last one that I was at. So after that job shop is when I went to the well, actually, after I was there, I already had my shop set up. I didn't have any machine. I might have. I think actually I did. I think right around then is the time, because I don't think I ever worked for myself without machines. I did motorcycle repair without machines, and I may have just been in business doing motorcycle repair, but I'm not positive on that. So I went in business for myself for a short period of time. And I went to the motorcycle shop the one day, the Harley machine shop, and I must have had my work clothes on or something, and he asked me, or I don't even remember the conversation. I just know that he asked me if I was a machinist, and I said, yeah. And he asked me, if I knew how to work on Harley Davidsons, and I told him I work on all different types of motorcycles. So I started working there. Again, job shop / Harley shop. It was okay experience. I worked there like a year or two. That guy really did some stuff that was not okay. So I left. That shop is in Alliance, Ohio. And they're still in business. There was another Harley shop that was in Alliance that's out of business now. But it's not a Harley shop. It's not a licensed Harley shop. It's just a motorcycle shop that works on Harleys. So I quit and went back on my own. Doing, building custom motorcycles was my main focus at the time. If you check out resurrectionchopshop.com, you'll see some of the motorcycles that I built, some of the different stuff that I've done. I built cafe racers. I wish I had some pictures of the choppers I built. At the time, I wasn't into taking pictures. Should have been, didn't. But I built some cool choppers. I've built cool motorcycles, really cool ones. Cafe racers was my thing, to take old cruisers like Viragos or whatever, and turn it into a cafe racer. Everybody uses the 750 inline 4 platforms. I liked the V platforms. But I would customize everything. I'd make the subframe. I never bought anything other than suspension. Make the exhaust, make the subframes, make the seat pans. Made everything from scratch. Wire harness. I really did make everything from scratch. I didn't make gas tanks from scratch. I modified the stock ones for the most part, or I'd modify a gas tank. Atlanta traffic at 8 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to be here an hour ago. But, so I did that for like 2 years. Everything was fine. Actually, business, I was getting more and more business. I started doing a little more job shop work. I did a lot of hardware modifying and was, things were going okay. I got the job at the, before I did that, I got the job where we built machines. It was basically just a bunch of 2x2 box tubing with some nests in it to hold blow molded plastic. Hit the buttons and door comes down, bunch of drills and knives start doing their thing. Door goes up, your part's done. So we built those machines. A lot of pneumatics. I did that for a while. And it wasn't real interesting. It was okay. It wasn't, it just wasn't for me. So, that's what I quit there, and that's when I was full-time in my own shop. By that time I had some work and stuff, so I actually picked up the hardware company and started modifying hardware prior to leaving there. Did my own thing for a couple years. The guy from the tool and die shop I used to work in called and asked me if I could come and help him get caught up. He had some jobs that were behind. So I ended up back there for like over a year, maybe even closer to 2 years. I left there pretty disgruntled. I always had a lot of respect for the guy. I learned a lot from him. The way things went there, I'm not mad at him. I'm not, you know what I mean? It's not like that. Things didn't go the way that they should have and could have. There's fire trucks and everything else going on over there. Welcome to Atlanta. Man, there's all sorts of stuff spun around backwards. Crazy over there. But, so I went to, basically when I left there, I wasn't in a position. I had already pretty much, put off all my customers, because I was putting in, we put in 18-hour days at times. I couldn't come home and do any work. So, like the first couple weeks I was there, I was getting work done that I had in the shop, and I quit taking more work on. So, I could put the hours needed to get caught up in the die shop. I ended up there, and that's what I mean by the way things should have and could have went was, which I'm glad I'm not there anymore, but I mean, if things were done better, I think that nobody would have gotten upset with anybody. I think even though nothing was really said, I think everybody was on everybody's nerves after over a year of 18-hour days, 7 days a week. I think everybody was on everybody's nerves. So it was time for me to go. And, you know, my wife was my girlfriend at the time. She was ready to go. So I told him, I'm going on vacation. I'll be gone for a week. And I need my last paycheck. And I never went back. As far as to work, I mean, I've been back in the building since then. Talk to him, see how things are going. I don't currently have any hard feelings. I don't know how he feels about me. I hope he don't have any hard feelings, but he certainly doesn't do anything to try to stay in contact with me. But, you know, such is the way of the world. People only call you when they want something, never just to see how you're doing or to see if you need anything. But so at that point, my customer base was gone. I had no job, so I had to start looking for a job. Me and my wife wanted to move to, at the time, Southern Ohio, to stay relatively close to where I grew up at. Actually, we said we were wanting to move south, but then we just decided we'll stay fairly local, move to Southern Ohio. I got the job in the under pressure water industry. That was super fun. I missed that job, but you know, we made fun. It was just fun. I mean, there was the stuff we made. It was fast-paced work environment. Somebody'd call and want something that day, and it wasn't on the shelf. So, you've got one day to make that part, you know, and it had to be right because you didn't have time to make two. But so I did a lot of that. You know, ended up after about a year, they bought some new CNC equipment. So I ran the 5-axis mill. No software, programmed it all longhand, 5-axis. I kind of took over the manual department as far as, you know, I was lead man in the manual department and kept that 5-axis mill running. And I did the mobile pump repairs. I went on those jobs, which was really just one customer, probably, I don't know, half hour away, but which was Canton Drop Forge. That place is crazy. If you've never been to a steel forge, check that out. The first time I went in there, my knees went numb from all the hammering. That was intense. But so I learned a lot about that industry. Came to Tennessee. You know, after I was there for a few years, I came to Tennessee and got a job making armatures. big electric motor armatures, and I'm talking big. We're like hundreds of horsepower electric motors. I mean, I don't even know if we made an armature for something that we might have. Come to think of it, we might have made armatures for stuff under 100 horsepower, but I'm talking big armatures. I mean, some of them were 5 feet in diameter. And I was a machinist there. I never did the assembly. I'm aware of how an armature is assembled, the heating processes, and I know that it's fiberglass, copper, blah blah blah. But I was a machinist there. There's nothing fun about machining an armature. So I left and went to my last shop that I worked at, and left there about 6 months ago, approximately. And it was a job shop, and that's where we made those cams. We made a lot of different cool stuff. I mean, we made very cool stuff. I'm glad I'm gone, but I'm sure that I would still be there if the place wasn't ran the way it was, or lack of. So I'm glad that I guess I'm glad it's ran the way it is. Whenever somebody left, I always said congratulations, because they got out of there. So, yeah, nobody understood why I was happy when somebody I liked left. Well, if I like you, I want you to be in a good environment, not the environment that they provided. So, which brings me to my own shop. I got a motorcycle mechanic certification in 2004. Some of my customers, which they were already customers, I don't know why it made a bit of difference, but I think they wanted to be able to tell their buddies that they had somebody, their mechanic's a certified motorcycle mechanic, whatever. So I went ahead and got that. I just took an online course. I think my worst test grade was like a 97. So it included a couple other certifications like outboard boat and personal watercraft, I believe is what the certification was for, along with motorcycles and ATVs. So I got that. That appeased some people, but whatever. I could have certainly done without it. It didn't make a bit of difference to me. So, I've got a lot of different experience under my belt. I've worked in a lot of industries, grew up working on my own stuff, reading books on how to fix stuff. I mean, tech books are what I read when I was a kid. I didn't read kids' books, I read tech books. I probably wasn't even big enough to lift a hydraulic cylinder, but I knew how to fix one. But it's just what I've always been interested in. I probably wasn't strong enough to crack the piston nut loose. I'm sure of that. But so we went and picked up a CNC mill. I had a job to make some engine cases. Check out Resurrection Chop Shop on Facebook. They're on there. I was going to make them at the shop I worked at in Ohio. The guy waited a really long time to pull the trigger on it. When he called and said, go ahead and make them, I just sent the material to your house. I was in the process of moving. I was actually in Tennessee when the material wound up on my porch in Ohio. So I found a CNC mill and put it in my new shop and made these engine cases because I told the guy I would. Yeah, I felt like I couldn't turn back on the guy because I had already told him I'll make these cases for him. I think anybody in their right mind would have just said, man, I told you that a year ago. You know, now I'm moving. I don't even have a piece of equipment. I don't even have a job yet. Actually, I did have a job when I moved, but so I bought this mill. I did have to buy software. I hadn't ran software in years. I'd never used Bobcat software. My first job on my new mill, on my new software, was these engine cases. Now, if you look at them, they are a work of art. They really are. They're beautiful. I wish my toolpath was different. But I was trying to get used to the software. I was just trying to make a part. You can polish anything, which I didn't. I didn't get paid to polish them. But anyway, that's why I bought my mill. Got that job done. And actually, I will say that I refer to him as the guy because he's horrible to work with. Horrible. I've never worked around anybody on such a power trip that treated people so poorly. A horrible combination of, just a horrible combination. I refused to call him my boss. I refused to call him a leader because he was just a terrible person. He's terrible. But what that guy did for me was steer me in the direction I needed to be to get a little bit of work out here. Because I needed to get that machine to start paying for itself. So he had done a job for a guy and flopped it. Actually, all he did was the CAD work on it. And I am really good at Mastercam. A lot better at Mastercam than I am Bobcat. I am really good at Mastercam. Which most of that's self-taught too. From doing it. I did actually come out here and take a Mastercam course, and I did learn a little bit. But most of what I learned was from doing it, and I'm good at it. So I took one of his drawings and imported it into my software so I could see it. And because it was a job that he had flopped, he said that they could do it on some water jet, 5-axis water jet. So he wrote the program, flopped it. So I ended up involved. And I made it. It was a gear for a merry-go-round. Made 2 of them. And that's how I started doing work for that guy. Because he was struggling getting work done. And I was capable of doing the job with the lead times that he wanted. So I was coming home from work and doing work for him. My first couple jobs, I made those gears. I made the Ferris wheel bushing. I did that job too for him, but I did some zipper bushings. If you guys know the carnival ride, the zipper. That's what that guy did, was refurbish carnival rides. But so I made some big shivs. Pulley, shiv, call it what you want. It's got bearings on the inside. It doesn't clamp on it's not a driven, it's an idler. So, I've made multiple gears for him. Again, check out Resurrection Chop Shop on Facebook. Most of this stuff is on there. My wife set all this up for me recently. Social media is advertising of the future. So that's why I'm doing this. And I get bored of driving, so it's, heck, make a video, why not? But tell you guys a little bit about me, where I come from, and what I'm doing today. But I made some gears, bushings, Ferris wheel bushings. I made a whole set of Ferris wheel bushings for him. My machine went down in the middle of that job. That whole job could have gone way differently. He kind of redid the order. I do not do any verbal. I need a paper in writing. I do not do verbal POs anymore. You give me a paper in writing or pay for it up front, and I'll do it. But I do not do, hey, make me these, because he claimed he only needed half the job after I was completely done with them. Which he ended up mysteriously getting a purchase order for the other half of the job later on down the road. But anyway, I could have done half the job and before my machine went down, which was a bummer. It cost me like $2,500 to get my machine running. The company that was fixing the spindle drive totally dropped the ball. Took them way longer to get it back to me. They sent me the wrong one back. I had to reconfigure it. So it would work for my machine. They left one of the boards off. So they had to send me that back. It was a nightmare. Getting my machine back up and running was a nightmare. It took me like a month. So I was actually late on that job. And I'm never late on jobs. So, yeah, I did quite a bit of work for him, and I got that. I got hooked up with him through that guy. Because that guy dropped the ball. That's even what my customer told me. But anyway, which led me to another pretty good contact, who I just started getting quotes from. I do some, just kind of depends on what the job calls for. I've made some very cool parts for a lot of different people. My customer base is growing. I've only been full-time this time around for about 6 months, but I've done more work in the past 6 months than I think I did in the 2 years of my previous self-employment. So, or close to it, at least as much as I did in a year. So that's good. I mean, the machines are running. I do a fair amount of equipment repair. I've done a good, okay amount of machining. I mean, I like machining and I like equipment repair. So I like that I do both of them, and it keeps things interesting, and it's always something different. It's and that's good for your soul to mix it up. Nothing gets stagnant. So here I am with that. But that's how I ended up where I am today. I don't have deep pockets. When I bought my CNC mill, it runs off of a rotary phase converter, and it is almost a 30-year-old machine. Now, it runs really good. It's good. I mean, holds good tolerances. It does run really good. It's a little slow, you know what I mean? But it's a solid machine, very solid. And it's not a very big machine. I've only got 16 by 20 travel, so I mean, on big parts I shift a lot. But it's a solid machine. Very solid machine. It's a Kiwa, or it's a knockoff of a Morisiki. It's got a Fanuc control. For my own machines, I'll only buy a Fanuc control. I mean, if I had a standout deal on a brand new Haas, I guess I'd probably buy it. But I don't have any desire to buy a Haas. They just don't last. They're not rigid. They're not all that accurate. Once they start wearing at all, they're not accurate. So, why would I want one? I want a machine that I can run for 30 years. But, and I will be buying another machine fairly soon, but I bought what I could afford. I needed to get the job done. I bought what I could afford. I brought it in. I had to work on the thing to get it running. It was a running machine when I bought it. I got a deal on it, and hauling a machine is hard on them, and I knew that when I did it. So I brought it in and had to get it up and running. Got it up and running, and made parts. But my big lathe, I traded my little lathe for it. Actually, my customer that does the carnival rides had it, never had it running, and wanted a littler lathe, and asked me if, well, I was over there, mentioned needing a bigger lathe if he wanted me to make these bigger parts. He told me that he'd like to trade me my little lathe for that one. So that's what we did. And that's how I got my bigger lathe. Everything's been out of pocket. You know, it's my shop's not elaborate. Right now it's a mess. I'm trying to remodel my house, and you know, my money's going into that. I would love to put some garage doors on my shop and get the other side of it poured so I would have twice the floor space. But that's just not feasible right now. I've got a couple jobs coming up that I think are going to be very profitable. So I'm hoping that maybe I can do it then. So ultimately, I mean, that's me. That's the story of me, what I'm doing today, and how I got here. How I got this customer is I grew up with him. He's one of my older brother's best friends. I was doing some work for him when I was still working. I called him when sorry about that, I'm checking my lanes. But I called him on my way home when I quit my job. And I told him I quit my job. And he said, I've got work for you. So it was really nice to be able to walk out of one job and have work. I mean, yeah, I had the machines, I had the tooling, I put my life into this. Not an understatement at all. And you know, he had work for me. So that's where I got the work right off the bat. Now I've got other customers also, but not as consistent as him. You know, I do like 99% of his maintenance. That 1% is the oil changes that I don't do. I do, as far as I know, I do 100% of his repairs. And he's got a lot of equipment. Maybe I'll do a little walk around a little later when I do this review on the Runcer Manufacturing thumb attachment, just to show you guys a little bit of his equipment. Might all be in trailers, I don't know. Maybe some of it will be out. He's got enclosed trailers for just about everything. So yeah, before I end this video, I was going to show you those idler pulleys for this lift. Now that it's light out, I can see them. I've got 1 mile, so I'll keep jabbering on for another mile. There was a group of kids years ago when I did a lot of motorcycle repair out of I don't know, somewhere actually kind of close to Cleveland. I fixed a dude's street bike, and I don't even remember what it was now. They ran a rental place in Kent, and this dude, he had his street bike there. The cable broke, and he left it there. So he I had an ad up on Craigslist at the time, and he called me and asked me if I could come put this cable on for him. So I did. The other guy that worked there had a four-wheeler, an old Warrior, that needed the engine rebuilt on, so he brought it to my house. I rebuilt the engine on it. And there was like 6 kids in this group that rode dirt bikes and four-wheelers. And I think I rebuilt every one of their dirt bikes and four-wheelers. One kid had a dirt bike and a four-wheeler. I rebuilt his four-wheeler. Well, actually, he brought his four-wheeler over in pieces and never picked it up. Never gave me the go-ahead to start working on it, and never picked it up. Here, I'll show you these real quick. I even got a red light. So this is that pulley. I put new bushings in it, machined it for bushings, made him a pin. The old one was toast. So that's the neighbors. I'm gonna work on that today. I'm gonna stand you back up here, get you going. But so I'll be working on that today. But anyway, yeah, I rebuilt all these guys' dirt bikes and four-wheelers. One of them brought me a four-wheeler in pieces to fix, and never brought me a deposit or anything. So it sat for 2 years. I told him to come and get it. He never came and got it. So after like 2 years, I don't even remember what I got for it, but I had $200 in it because I thought, well, No, I remember why it was $200. He still owed me $200 for a dirt bike that I rebuilt for him. And so he, after 2 years, decides he's going to sell this four-wheeler to somebody, I don't know, but he says so-and-so is going to come and pick that four-wheeler up. And I said, okay, well, tell him to bring me my $200. And they never showed up, so I ended up with that four-wheeler. So I got it running and sold it. But so that's a little bit about me. But all right, guys, it's 8:30. I wanted to be here at 7. I'm still not here. I'm about 15 minutes away from my destination. I'm gonna make a quick phone call before I get there, and that'll be that. So you guys have a safe day. There's a few things I suggest watching, but I guess, before I suggest any of those channels to you, question yourself. Who's your savior? Have a good day.